Hello and welcome back to the Ever-Changing World podcast. I'm your host, Ava Zanetti, and today's episode is going to be a little bit educational. I'm sure lots of you probably know about this topic, but I thought it'd be an interesting one. I love talking about evolution, which is a topic today. If you haven't read the title, I'll see where this goes. I know I probably want to do another episode that's more guided towards the future of evolution, but if we have enough time and we get to it, I'll probably talk about the future and what I think the future of evolution is. It's all really, really interesting stuff. So, I mean, hang tight. We might cover it. We might not. We might do that in a later episode. I definitely know an amazing resource is Kurzgesagt. In a nutshell, that's a German word. I probably really mispronounced that. But it's an amazing YouTube channel. I believe they are German. I mean, the name is in German. But it's just an amazing YouTube channel. I absolutely love it. The infographics are so clean and nice, and they work so hard on each video. They put so much research into every single one. There's a whole team behind it. If you've ever seen this, it's all these little ducks, and they just make these amazing videos. So I totally recommend those. I mean, I get a lot of inspiration from those videos when I'm recording these podcasts, or even when I'm just thinking about new podcast episodes to record. I absolutely love their channel, so definitely go check that out. As well, I started a segment last week, which might go well if I read more, but I'm still reading the same book. I'm doing a little segment before we begin, talking about what book I'm currently reading. I am currently reading The Pilgrimage by Paulo Coelho. If you know him, he wrote The Alchemist. I have a podcast episode on that book. Go listen. I actually think it's one of my fastest performing videos so far, one of the most well-performing ones, which surprised me since it's the longest episode I've done. It was an hour and a half, and I really talked a lot, and I spewed a lot of stuff out. So, it wasn't really well-structured. I just kind of went through the book about what I thought, and the whole weekend I just was marking it up, and I just love the book. So, I might do more book readings if I am in the mood, because I think those are super, super good, and it seems like people like those. So I'm trying to take some inspiration. Last week's episode, we talked about the Olympics. It was a very chill episode. I think I actually got some audience that's not my usual audience, but it was one of my worst performing ones in terms of the first day it was published, like how many people listened to it. So I'll definitely keep that into account. I also definitely know, for me, it's very hard to talk about sports, and I thought the Olympics was good just because there was that whole scandal, and that's why I talked about it. So, you know, if you want to listen to that episode, go to last week's video. And if you want to listen to any of the other videos that I have, always go listen. And as well, always check, I should probably say this at the beginning of every episode, but I forget. So I'm saying it right now. Always check the resources page, and I always link it. It might not be, I've looked, and sometimes it's not structured right on Spotify or like Apple Podcasts. Actually, Apple Podcasts, it looks nice. Some of them don't, but I do link every single resource I have in there, so just go check that out. As well, if you want to, I would definitely recommend always looking at, well, maybe not if you want to, but always, I don't know where it's getting at there, but always look at when I publish the episode, because sometimes information will not be up to date. Today's episode really is just about evolution, so all this information should be as up to date as we will get in the next few years, but I mean, always, who knows? So definitely also always check the date box that I have down there, wherever it says the date that I published it, because it can always change. And I always record the episode the Monday night, and I always publish it Tuesday morning. So it's, because I don't edit it, if you can ever hear me talk. I love to talk, so I just kind of ramble in a way. So definitely always check that. It will be up to date for that week that I published it, so it shouldn't be too out of date. I really need to talk about this, and I've really debated talking about the Russia and Ukraine war. It is a war now. They've been bombed. Ukraine has been bombed. And I've really debated talking about it. I think next week's episode I might do a full episode on it. The developments are every single day. And there's so many different conflicting opinions. But I feel a need to talk about it. And I won't get into it too much this episode. I don't want to, talk too much about it. We guys are trying to learn about evolution. But I definitely do want to bring it up because it's such a timely topic. I feel I need to talk about it, even with the, 5 people that listen to the podcast every week. I do feel I need to talk about it. First of all, I stand, obviously, with Ukraine and their people, and as well as the Russian people. Obviously, it is all Putin and his doing. And I've seen all those videos of the protests in Russia saying no war as well. So I stand with really both sides on this. This is really, really just a horrible thing going on. And it's really sad. It's one of, I think it is the biggest war, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in the last, since World War II in Europe. So it's insane, and it's scary, and it's definitely a scary time. So if any of you are ever really scared about it, and worried and nervous, especially all of you, I mean, if you're in Ukraine, you're definitely not listening to a podcast episode, but whenever you're listening to this, if you ever need resources to help, there's tons online. Maybe I'll find some and link them in the description if I can find any. Definitely next week when I do a proper episode, which I think I will do next week, because I just need to talk about it. As you can tell now, I'm already about to ramble about it, but I will definitely link those probably next week, so go listen to next week's episode then. But I just really like to say, it's the time. I stand obviously with Ukraine. I stand with the Russian people as well, who don't want a war, and nobody wants a war. That's not a thing people want. Really we can kind of break war down into three things usually. It's usually for power, money, and land, or all three, one, depends. So, it's scary, and, it's a hard time for people, and I've seen the videos, and I've seen that civilians and children have died, and it's very sad, and I hope this conflict can end, as soon as it started. And I also do have to say that President Zelensky, I think that's how you pronounce his name, actually. I am going to make sure I get this right. But the president of Ukraine, I just want to make sure I get his name right. Zelensky. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Zelenskyyy. Anyways, President Zelensky, president of Ukraine, I do have to say, is such an admirable guy. He is out there fighting on the front lines for Ukraine, for his country. If I do, I probably will do next week's episode, but I'll probably talk a lot about this. But I've seen him on the front lines. I've seen him, in that whole quote. I don't want this to turn into a Russia-Ukraine episode, but I saw that quote, and it was, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. And that's just such a powerful quote. And that's going to be in history books. It's going to be in history textbooks. It's going to be, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. So, he's a great guy. It's a powerful statement. The people of Ukraine are strong people, I have to say. They are fighting for their country for tooth and nails. They shouldn't have to. They're a sovereign country, but they are fighting for their freedom. And I think this is a really great testament, especially in the age that we are in now. Especially my generation too, I have to be honest, I'm a Gen Z, right? I definitely think that we need to take into account our privilege, and our privilege of what actual freedom is. In Canada, the United States. I live in Canada. I was born in the States. I want to go to the States for school, so just North America in general. We have so much freedom. And when you almost have too much freedom, it blinds you to what real freedom is, and it really blinds you to what our lives could be like. There's crazy propaganda going on in Russia right now. I saw it was a tweet, I believe, but it was a video. It was a proper video of someone. I think Ukraine captured a fallen soldier's phone and his messages to his mother. It was so sad, and it was like we were told that the Ukrainian people would be in welcoming arms, and he was like, "I'm scared, Mama." It was a sentence like that, and again, I don't want to spiel about this too much, but it's so timely, and I need to speak about it for a few more minutes. So hang in there. But I think it's, especially if you're in 2022 right now, it's a very timely thing, and I think we need to speak about these things because, evolution is kind of a part of this, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Anyways, so I saw that, and I saw that video, and I saw what that soldier said, and it's so sad. Both sides are suffering right now. Of course, Ukrainian people are, of course, I stand with Ukraine. But you also have to recognize, right, the Russian people, they don't want a war. Nobody wants a war, and it is Putin, and he is it's some sort of power trip, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's no way anyone should be agreeing with Putin, and if you are, I mean, I don't know what to say, but it's scary, and and it's nerve-wracking. And if you guys want to kind of just listen to this episode, I know there's so much media about this right now, and I know I'm adding to that, and I'm kind of just, spieling what my opinions are, but, if you want to kind of get an escape from that reality, of course, if you're in war, you're not listening to a podcast, but even if you're not, if you want to take a break, and maybe me not talking about Russia, this beginning portion, if you got this far, go listen to my other podcast episodes. I have 8 others up right now. Last week's was really fun. We talked about some silly stuff, so go listen to that one if you want a nice longer break. I have some more technical stuff like Moore's Law. Ooh, YouTube crypto scams was a really fun one. I'm just looking at the ones I've done so far. Again, if you want to do one about a book, The Alchemist is an amazing one. Metaverse was one of my favorites. That was my second episode. And then, no, sorry, that was my third. James Webb Space Telescope. Actually, maybe I'll mention that as well, because space is a huge part of this war now. It's insane. And I'm just going to wrap this up now, because I don't want to, again, go too long on, because I'm already over 10 minutes, in terms of talking about this conflict when we're talking about evolution. But I really do have to put my 2 cents in there. Wanted or unwanted, even with the small platform I have, which is, a few listeners a week, I feel a need to talk about this, and it's just been on my mind, it's been on my heart, too, for a really long time. It's really bad, and I know I needed to at least put my prayers out there for everyone, put my thoughts out there, let everyone, people know I am thinking about them, and I stand with them, and I stand with everyone who's going through this, and, I just hope it gets better. We're in a really tough situation right now. NATO can't really go in. It's a tough spot. And, that's why Russia did what they did. Well, not Russia, but that's why Putin did what he did, because he thought he had the leg up. But, again, let's not get into it too much, because I'll probably do an episode next week. But, anyways, that's my 2 cents on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So, anyways, I stand with everyone, Ukraine and the Russian people who obviously don't want any part of this, and to all the Ukrainian people that are out there fighting. You guys are strong people. You guys are absolutely fearless. You are fighting tooth and nail for a country that you shouldn't have to fight tooth and nail for. You are fighting for your freedom. You are fighting for your country, for your lives, and it's honestly so admirable. And I'm honored, really, to even be able to, speak on how great you guys are. So, anyways, despite that, let's move on from that. I'll probably do an episode next week again on that conflict next week, so stay tuned. And I did want to mention, the James Webb Space Telescope, because there are some developments in that. We've talked a little bit about the developments each week, and we're going to move on to a little bit of a lighter topic. We've seen a bit of developments. Let me get my phone out, because I know, NASA has a really good outline of this, and I don't want to spiel this off the top of my head, because I haven't really researched this, too much this often. So let me look. I just want to make sure that I get let me make sure I get the right information, because that is so important. Oh, NASA has not really. Anyways, I don't know if you saw this. Actually, I think I did talk about this last week, but James Webb Space Telescope, you haven't heard, they took a mirror selfie, which was super cute. It was my wallpaper for a little bit there. And I wanna quickly look at this. I know a lot of the things are deployed right now. In a few months, when it's really doing interesting stuff, I'll do a follow-up episode on the James Webb Space Telescope. Because I just think that would be really interesting to talk about. And I think that would be really fun. Let me look at some updates. As well, I do want to mention, so we don't have some dead air while I'm looking up stuff, today's episode is going to be really chill once again. I mean, all my episodes are pretty chill, but I do want to say this is just kind of about evolution. I know most people know about evolution, so I just want to give my 2 cents again, as I do every week. And I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about evolution. It's a fun one. I was going to talk about the Big Bang Theory, actually, but I thought I'd dip my toes into maybe some murky water for some people and see how it goes. And I say that as I'm probably going to do a politics episode next week, but you know what, that's okay. So, okay, sorry, so it's aligning its mirrors right now, so it has a bunch of, it's taking photos of some galaxies, it's kind of just aligning its mirrors, and I know, I can't find it, but besides the point. I know I think there's 7 stages, and I think it's in its 5th. So it's really getting there. It's going to be deployed soon. I can't wait to see some of the really cool images, and I really can't wait to see how it goes. Obviously, it's doing really, really good. It's getting some really good developments, and yeah. I think the James West Space Telescope is so awesome. So if you want to listen to that episode, that's number 2. Anyways, so let's get into the actual content, the meat of today's episode. Maybe I spieled a little bit too much in the intro, but that's okay because today's episode, again, very kind of low content-wise. So we're just going to take it one step at a time, 1 minute at a time. So today, I'm just kind of going to talk about what is evolution, a basic explanation, kind of grade 3 level, whatever. How do we know what evolution is? Charles Darwin, of course, is our, kind of frontier in this area. And I want to talk about kind of the evolution throughout the years, but there's so much content with evolution, to be quite honest. As much as it's a weird topic to talk about in a podcast. Oops, sorry about that. I just spilled water on myself. Although it's kind of a weirder topic to talk about, in podcast format, I think there's so much information that I can't really talk about the future of evolution in this episode. I don't think that's going to work. But I do want to say that the Russia-Ukraine conflict, I did have a thought, and I do want to say this. I don't know what I was going to say. I was going to say some sort of human evolution, which I guess you can kind of call it that. I mean, evolution can be really thought of in many ways. We use evolution as a really loose term nowadays. You can say the evolution of my brand, the evolution of this. And in terms of today's episode, I'm going to be talking about evolution in terms of, obviously, like, evolution. Like, going from apes to humans type of thing. Or chimps to humans. So, that's kind of the role I want to go down. Not the role, but, like, the path in today's episode. As we are 20 minutes in, I'm telling you what we're doing. But that's all good. That's why we have podcasts. So I can talk for a very long time. Oh my gosh, I really want to talk about the Russia-Ukraine stuff, but I really can't anymore. And there's so much information. But you know what? That is a topic for another time. So anyways, let's get into what evolution is exactly. Let's get into the content of today. So, really, what is evolution? You guys have probably heard this term a million times. The classic image is the ape, and there's so many funny memes about this image, but there's always the ape kind of, let me read it out to you in the way I would explain it. There is an ape, a chimp, whatever you want to call it, on its kind of 4 legs, hind legs. Then it's like slowly getting up, has like these kind of T-Rex arms, and it's kind of crouched down still, but it looks more human-like. And then it's us. We still have pretty crouched backs, which is kind of unfortunate. So anyways, evolution, you probably learned this in your biology class, but I mean, you know what? Some people don't take science all the way through high school or their lives. So this is kind of good to talk about then. So really in biology, evolution is really just a change in the characteristics of species over generations and generations and generations. And this is something called natural selection. You've probably heard people use that term very loosely once again. We're kind of that age where we lose everything loosely. But really the thing that it kind of relies on a genetic variation in a population, which affects its physical characteristics. So what this is used in a scientific term is a phenotype. I have not taken grade 11 bio yet, so I mean, I'm sure I'll be relearning this next year. But it really is kind of just the characteristics of an organism. And these could be kind of an advantage over other individuals. And there's a whole idea of natural selection, which I think I just got to talk about because whatever, I'm alluding to it. So natural selection is the idea where the best man wins in a term, in a sense. So let's use humans, for example, I guess. Maybe that might be a bad one. Why don't we use puppies? Puppies is a good one. This is a good way to explain it. So let's say the puppies are just born, and obviously their mom is giving them milk, right? So Puppies are very small. Their mom is pretty small too, though. So let's say there's 10 dogs. She has a litter of 10 dogs. I don't know if that's realistic. But she has 10, and only 7 can maybe fit to drink her milk. The 7 ones that will be able to drink her milk are going to be the strongest ones, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to push the others out of the way to get what they need, to get the food, to get the nourishment that they need to keep on living. So the idea behind this then is those other 3 puppies, well, what happens to them? Well, they're the weak links, quote unquote. So these ones are the kind of weaker ones, the slower ones. Maybe they are dying, whatever they are, they're old. Well, they're puppies in my example, but still, they're kind of, they're just not fit. And these are the ones that would die out. So we can think of this in the same way when we're looking at our genetics. When we look at our DNA, our genomes and all of that, the way we have natural selection as well, this happens with mutations too. Blue eyes is technically a mutation. And that was something that went through some kind of form of evolution, some kind of form of natural selection that ended up keeping onto people like me who has blue eyes. And then obviously there's certain things with genetics where certain assets outweigh the others, and that's like a whole other topic. But in terms of evolution, it's really just the development and that natural selection aspect is really huge. Because think of it this way, like if there was no natural selection, all these weak links would keep alive, and they would reproduce, and then there'd be more and more weak links. So that's the whole point of natural selection. If you want to think of it as a point, it's to knock out those weak links, and it's to just get all the sucky ones out, in a way, and create better and better and a better species. You could say, well, humans, have we even done this? Yes, we have. So funny you say that. We definitely have natural selection, maybe not in our modern day world, and let's be honest, we probably should have some natural selection in our modern day world. That might be good for the human race, definitely, but it's something obviously that was very prominent back in the day. I say back in the day, not like the 50s, but back hundreds of years ago. And definitely as we were developing, from chimps to humans, chimps are our closest ancestor, by the way. So we were like that once, though obviously we aren't. So let's move on to a little bit. This is gonna be a little bit sporadic, but let's move on to a little bit of who Charles Darwin is. So his very, 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 very famous book is The Origin of Species. I absolutely love that book. I read it in grade 5, I believe, though someone asked to borrow it a few years ago, and they never gave me my book back. So that made me kind of sad. And actually, I saw that book the other day at Indigo, and I was about to buy it, and then I said, you know what, it's okay, and I never did. So that is unfortunate. So maybe I will buy that this weekend. But, yeah, The Origin of Species is a huge, huge, huge book. And I was about to, this is why I was debating talking about evolution, because I don't have the book. But I really don't think it's necessary to use the book as an example in today's episode, since I won't go into, super detail into exactly what every single thing Darwin said. And as well, all of his content is so readily available online, since he was such a pioneer in this area. He is evolution, really, if you want to think of it that way. He is the main dude. He's the dude you want to talk about evolution to. If he was alive, you'd want to chat with him. You'd want to have a coffee with him and say, hey, man, can you, tell me about evolution? This is the guy. So, all the information is really readily available. But basically, he discovered evolution. Well, how did he do this? Well, he had a few different things about, Let me see. He had a few different things about the characteristics of evolution that I kind of want to get into before he discovered it. And it might be in this article as well. I don't know. This is also yourgenome.org. Obviously, it will always be linked in the description. Anyways, so his kind of idea behind it and what drove his point was really the thing is that the individuals in a species, so each individual person, you want to think about a way, show variation in physical characteristics. So if something really interesting, if you even look at identical twins, which is a really great example, the whole nature versus nurture act is so prominent. Actually, there's a really cool test that they did, maybe not very ethical, but it was a very cool test. with 3 triplets all identical. Anyways, nature versus nurture, that's a different topic. But even identical twins have variations in genes, which makes sense, but it's also like, really, they look exactly the same. They talk the same sometimes. Maybe they have the same exact interests, but there's still variations in those genes. So that's something really important to know, that everybody really has huge variations in their genes. Even with your mom and your dad, I mean, obviously you have like half and half, but sometimes you might have like 90% of like your mom's genes and like 10% of your dad's. Like, it really just depends what outweighs the other. And that's why we have natural selection, because there's a reason why genes beat each other out, in a sense, is so they can be the best version of themselves. That's why when anybody is finding a mate, even now, because a lot of our evolution kind of translates to our today world. So our animalistic characteristics, the evolution that we were based upon, still comes into play today. So maybe the type of person you're attracted to, maybe they have a lot of power, a lot of money, maybe they are very healthy, very young, all these different kind of characteristics that might be good for birthing, might be good for shelter, housing, all that. That still comes into play. Obviously, when we were like chimps, or when we were, like in our Homo sapiens stage, maybe we were, sorry, I have KT tape on me and I'm like trying to rewrap it. Maybe we were looking for those similar ideals, but in a different sense. Like, we didn't have money, but maybe this person was wealthy in the sense that they had the best shelter in the area, or whatever it may be. So, these things do really come to and play now, and that's really the interesting thing about evolution, what I want to get across. And I will go into a little bit of the religion aspect of it. And in this episode, I'm already getting into politics and religion. I mean, I'm just going full on controversial today. We'll see how it goes. But I really do also want to kind of spew a little bit about religion, because I think it is a little bit important to talk about it, because a lot of people, of course, sorry about that, my computer just recharged. A lot of people really don't believe in it. They do. People have really strong opinions on this, which, I have a great quote that I'll give you in a moment. Anyways, so obviously, again, like I mentioned, I didn't even realize this, but, individuals with these characteristics, not just finding mates, obviously they need to be the best in their environment, need to survive, right? Need to be the best at finding food, finding water, whatever, and this would have the best chance of reproducing those good genes into their children. So, individuals that are poorly adapted to their environment are less likely to survive or reproduce, and then that means their genes won't pass on to the next generation, or less likely to, and that's kind of how we kick out those bad genes. So as a consequence, those individuals most suited to their environment survive, and given enough time, the species will eventually evolve. So they'll become better and better and better and better and better. Sorry about that. If you hear that boom noise, it's probably just my computer. So, natural selection in action. I believe this is the one that he used. I might have to look that up, but I believe... No, sorry. He used the... I remember this. He went to the Galapagos Islands, and he used this bird. What bird is this? This is the differences in their beaks to shape. Finches. Sorry. Yeah, so his really big... Okay, I'll talk about this first. So his really big way he found out that about evolution and how it exists is when Charles Darwin went on an expedition to the Galapagos Islands, and he looked at finches. So he saw these 4 different finches on the island, and I'll give you a brief description of each of them. The first one we have marked number 1, and they're very beautiful drawings, by the way, has this really big face, right? This really big, chunky beak, a bigger, wider face, more rounded. The article will be linked if you don't want to listen to my descriptions. Number 2 is still like a pretty big face, but it's a little bit more squashed. Number 3 is a very typical kind of bird shape. It's a very kind of shorter beak. It's very cute looking, if you want to use that word. And number 4 is similar to 3, but has a very long, it has a longer beak, much longer, and its neck is a little bit more like up, it's more protruding. So these 4 finches, or the types of finches that he saw on the island, made him determine that there was evolution. And the way he described this is because the finches had these very different kind of facial features, very different beaks is really what he described. They developed these different beaks for a reason, and the reason why they did this was to take advantage of the different kinds of food available in different islands. So maybe finch number one was really good at, maybe finding fish. I don't think finches eat fish, but just an example. Or finch number 2 was really good at this, whatever. So, that's kind of how he discovered how this would work. And this is from the voyage of the Beagle. So that was actually the ship that he went on. And actually, I'm going to do a little more research on this to make sure you guys get the concept here. I'm just being a little bit off my head, but this was a very, 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 very famous book, and a very famous expedition that allowed us to discover, I'm so sorry about that, to discover evolution. I am so sorry about that. My computer charger, a little bit of a rant here, is so bad, and I went to every store in the mall the other week, and none of them had the proper one, so that's how I'm living life right now. I think it's good. Okay, anyways, so he was 22 years old, and it was a kind of a 5 years of hardship that he went through with the Beagle, and that's how he discovered, I don't want to go through his whole story here, but really, there was a lot of hardship, there's a lot of seasickness, etc., etc. As you can imagine, in the 1700s, it's not a great time, like, you're not having fun, probably a lot of, horrible things going on. Anyways, so, he ended up seeing these finches, basically. I'm just gonna say he found these finches and said, you know what, this is how evolution exists. I don't want to go too much into the really, really nitty-gritty on it. Sorry, this was in the late 1800s, by the way. So, this was in his London years. So, the Beagle voyage. I feel like I need to talk about this. Oops. Sorry about that. I have so many, I have a bone to pick. All these really good articles always have such annoying ads. And there's a way to actually get rid of them. Like, get rid of the pop-up where it's like, you have to pay us to read it. But I kind of forget how to do it. So, that's what we're dealing with. So, okay, let me see. So we also looked at some really big mammals with different types of... So yeah, he said the land was evidently changing, rising, and Darwin's observations in the Andes Mountains confirmed it. They went around to some different places. I want to get the gist here. Can we get a little bit of summary here? We have a 2-minute summary. I think that's going to really knock it in. So he's a naturalist. So he studied medicine, etc., etc., So he was a naturalist on this HMS Beagle, which was bound on a long scientific survey to South America and the South Seas. So this was from 1831 to 1836. So he had these like zoological and geological discoveries on this voyage, were very important publications, and he recognized that with the local population of the individual bird, so the finch, would have a sharper beak to better chance of survive and reproduce. And that if such traits were passed on to a new generation, they'd be predominant in future populations. So he saw natural selection, and that's what he described it as. And this was in a mechanism which adaptation variations were passed on to later generations, and as adaptation traits were eventually disappeared. So he worked on this theory for actually more than 20 years before publishing it on the Origin of Species by means of natural selection in 1859. It's a very, 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 very old book, or at least compared to my lifetime. And this book was it was actually in really great demand right away, and it was actually very controversial, of course. I mean, okay, if you have to think about back to this time, and I mean, this book, like, realistically was published close to the 1900s, so people were getting a little bit more lenient, but of course, religion's obviously always still a really prominent figure. You know, people would doubt it. They'd be like, oh, you're just spewing lies, you know, the Testament says this, the Testament says that. You're spewing lies. This can't be real. This science can't be real. What is science? Obviously, I'm being a little dramatic right here. And, you know, I'm kind of being dramatic for a reason. I'm being dramatic for a reason, you know, to get the point across. But, you know, religion can be a really scary thing in these circumstances, especially back in the day, because people weren't as open about these theories and about them being real. And it is really surprising to me that people were really into the idea. As mentioned, it was controversial, but they really wanted to buy the book, so that is a really important idea behind that. of course, religious leaders is what I mentioned. We have to talk about it. And he ended up, some of these ideas that Darwin had obviously were modified with better developments of genetics and biology. His works obviously are central to modern evolutionary theory. And many other important works were published that we really don't, And Darwinism is kind of the whole word that is spewed out all the time. And that's obviously, that is the big thing about Darwin. So, okay, wait, actually, this is a good did you know. Little did you know section from Britannica, which is the article I'm reading. So, Darwin's questioning. So, you have to remember, right, in the 1800s, right? Put yourself in the 1800s. There wasn't really much options. It sounds so gross, but there wasn't much options in terms of marrying people. If you know what I'm getting at. And there wasn't 7 billion people on the earth, and people were kind of gross, right? People were going to the washroom outside, and that wasn't the grossest thing to happen. So Darwin's questioning of the practice of human inbreeding, so, the common word we use today is incest, was taboo. So questioning this was actually taboo, which now, doing the opposite, is very taboo. At least because this was a very huge criticism of the royal family. As we know, even now, the royal family is such a prominent figure, and I think this is so interesting, but it's such a figure that people look up to. People are obsessed, I tell you, with the royal family, and they really just love talking about them. So, I mean, sure, right? Sure. So anyways, oh my gosh, my dog always does this right when I'm recording a podcast episode. She cries at my door. But we'll be quiet. Actually, no, we'll be louder than her, is what I meant. Anyways, so, obviously, royal family can't be criticized, but, the Queen Victoria had married her cousin. Really gross. But, I mean, that's a really huge evolutionary theory. It's a huge thought. It's kind of crazy that this is something that went on, and it is. It's really, truly something that went on, and we have to realize that. And you know what? Sometimes we just gotta not accept it. We don't accept it. We nod our heads because we realize that was the time it happened at. Anyway. So he ended up going public with the idea of natural selection, and he had to go public so that Alfred Wallace, this guy, will receive all the credit for the theory, both of them having researched it independently. So he basically had to spew out this idea of natural selection, so then, shoot, this guy doesn't, beat me to it. And, interesting. So, actually, some argue that Darwin's frequent illnesses, as I did mention he was sick a lot, have been largely psychosomatic, since his symptoms were often worsened with stress, which is very interesting. And, very interesting as well. So Charles Darwin actually was really scared of this stuff too, because his grandfather, Aramis Darwin, was a doctor whose talk of transmutation, the word for basically evolution, led to Aramis being discredited and shamed, giving Charles a fear of public censure and leaving him slow to publish his works. So he was very scared. And I mean, at this time you also have to remember too, and I've researched a bunch about prominent astronomers, but you have to remember that this is a scary thing. People are scary, and you could, get horrible threats, right? You can imagine now people getting death threats online, and, usually fake. Imagine what it actually would be like, right? So, I think that's really interesting that Darwin, his own grandfather, had worked on this, essentially, and he went on this great voyage on the Beagle, not the dog, but the Beagle, the ship, HMS Beagle, and he really did revolutionize modern evolution and really created it. So, maybe let's go into a little bit of controversy, because we don't have too much time left. I'd like to do a little bit of controversy, because I think that would be fun. We're not doing the future, because, I mean, come on, what are we gonna do that for? We'll do that in another episode. Okay, so, this is getting a little controversial. Okay. As a preface on this, I respect everybody's religious affiliations. I respect what you believe. And really my thing is I will be honest, I am an atheist. I'm not an atheist who's just going to discredit everybody and what they believe. I don't believe it. And you know what? That's okay. If you believe it, that's okay as well. You know what? It's like, you believe what you want to believe. I believe what I want to believe. I'm really tiptoeing around this, as you can tell. But, I just want to really say that religion is a touchy subject, and I get it, right? It's really close to some people's hearts. My grandparents are very religious, so I really do get it. And I understand. So I will tiptoe around this. I won't obviously discredit people's ideas, but I will be looking at this from a science perspective. So just really keep that in mind. I am an atheist. I'm not really spiritual, but like I keep an open mind, because that is a part of science, I do have to say, is obviously going with the facts and what is laid out to you, but also science can always be improved. And that's the thing I want to get across too, is that yes, science can be improved, so yes, maybe I am wrong, right? We'll see when we're dead, is kind of the idea I think of it. So anyways, besides the point, I am an atheist, so this will be coming from my scientific perspective, and if you don't like that, then just don't listen. I don't know what other way to say it, truly. So, before I begin this little section, little 10-minute, whatever it may be, probably a little longer than that, I am going to give you a beautiful quote by the beautiful Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is an astrophysicist. I'm sure lots of you know about him. He is very, very famous. He's really brilliant. This is probably one of my favorite quotes, scientific quotes of all time. It is, "The good thing about science is that it's true, whether or not you believe in it." Neil deGrasse Tyson. I will read that again to really get the point across. Hit it home. The good thing about science is that it's true, whether or not you believe in it. I believe there's a variation to the quote that's a little very similar, but that gets the point across. So, why don't we get into this? I haven't opened up any of these articles yet, so I'm really kind of scared. Okay. I'm really scared about this. I don't really know what to do. I don't know where to start. I kind of want to look at a perspective from a religious affiliation. Okay, this is a really interesting article title. I don't know how to say this. This is so bad. Ooh, we have a little bit of a interesting. Okay, so. Okay. Evolution is such a touchy subject, but I don't know why it is a touchy subject. Like I said with the Neil deGrasse Tyson quote, I am a science person, okay? That's how I think. That's it, okay? To me, this makes sense, but I will say, like, if you're religion, but I also do want to say that religion can coincide with evolution. It can coincide with science, and it can coincide with the Big Bang Theory, even. I mean, the Big Bang Theory is just the idea that the universe started that way, but no one's saying that it wasn't a god who created it. Like, how the hell would I know who created that, right? Like, you do also say, like, it can be, but, you know, the science is a science is a science. It is fact, it is fact, it is fact, and there's no way of disputing that. You can if you want to, if you believe it's something else. There's no way to really change it. So anyways, this was a really old article. This was 2013, but I will mention it because why not? In 2013, the Texas Board of Education actually failed to approve a leading high school biology textbook, whose author included the Roman Catholic biologist from Brown, because of his treatment of evolution. According to the New York Times, critiques from a textbook reviewer identified as a Darwin skeptic. So, this happens a lot in Texas, and I will just say Texas because it is a very kind of religious area, kind of very conservative, or Republican, as we Americans say it. So, you know, it's a very kind of heavy in that direction, which is great. Fine, get hands up here. Tiptoeing around the topic. But I do want to say that, I mean, you're teaching a biology class. There is no way why evolution should not be in a biology class. There's just, I don't care. That kind of makes me mad, because it is really almost like a form of propaganda. When you are saying, we cannot show science, because, hey, I'm a religious person and I don't believe in what you're saying. I don't care. Send your kid to a Catholic school then. Teach your kid what you want then in your own household, but don't be telling the Board of Education what they should be teaching when they have education to teach, when they have facts to teach, and when they have truth to teach. Because what are we turning this into then? We need to give the information laid out to every single child, every single person on this earth, and give them the truth. And that is what everybody not just needs, but what they deserve. They deserve to know the truth. And if evolution is the truth, and that's what the science is showing, which it is, it should be out there. So I know there's been debates about this as well recently, and I might do an episode more on, like, specific religious stuff, obviously, but I do want to say this has been kind of a spewing topic, and I think I'm only going to look at this article for the last, like, 5 minutes that I'm going to talk today. But, gosh, these episodes go by so quick, but I really don't want to say, because this was a long time ago, but I do want to say that, you know, it is just frustrating, even like 10 years ago, that these debates were going on. So, you know, people are kind of undermining modern science, is what it's saying here, and it looks like evolution, you know, really including human life will be a major part of the story, etc. And, you know, we can see our brains are a huge part of evolution, and it's, you know, they're kind of joking in this article, like, whatever they're saying is, you know, disposes us of this, actually. So, let me see. Oh, okay, sorry. They're talking about why religion is sorry for the, like, about 10 seconds of dead air. They're talking about why religion is natural and science is not. That's a book by, it's under Mind, Brain, and Culture at Emory University. So, okay, so what can science tell us about the not-so-scientific minds? So here's a list. So, okay, a lot of this is getting into why kind of people may not believe in evolution, which, again, I don't want to get into it, because I don't want to get into any, like, religious fights here. But, okay, so a lot of the time, really, let's just be honest, a lot of the time when people read the Bible, read whatever scriptures that they have from whatever religion they believe in, a lot of the time in those books, it may be, it may tell us things that may not be true. And I'm not disrespecting me. Again, I'm saying I'm from a scientific perspective. But sometimes it's so true. Like, these stories in these Bibles are just, they're not telling the truth, right? And the 7 days and all of that in evolution. We know evolution is true. We've researched this for years and years and years, man. We know it's true. Like, I don't know what other way to put it, make it any simpler than just to say it's true. We have proof for it. Scientists who devote their lives to the act of science, to devote their lives to this practice, are screaming at people saying, evolution is true, why are you even doubting it? And schools in Texas, I mean, this was 10 years ago, I'm not sure if this is gone now, but at least there was a time when schools in Texas were saying, hey, let's take evolution out of the biology textbook, which is supposed to tell you about biology, which is the biggest part about biology is evolution, both human and just natural selection, like in terms of plants and animals and everything. Evolution is how we're even here today. That's the only reason why I'm speaking the way I'm speaking. I mean, even the evolution of languages. Like, we know evolution is even a concept in everything else. So why wouldn't it be a concept for us, right? This is where I'm getting at. It's one of those topics where it's like flat earthers as well, right? It's like, why is every other planet circular but ours? Why is or spherical than ours? Like, why are we the weird flat-shaped thing, right? What, you think everybody's... It's really this idea that everybody's out to get them, right? So, you know, something aside from religion, I definitely know religion and science can coincide, and that's what I'm getting at here. Like, if you are a religious person, great, right? Like, I'm not disrespecting you, but I am really getting the point across here that science is true. Whether or not you believe in it, like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, you know, who's devoted his life to science, by the way, you know, don't start screaming at your phone, right? He's devoted his life to this. Science is true. It is fact. You can believe in it, you cannot believe in it. You can put religion and science hand in hand to each other. That's cool too, right? All this stuff can go hand in hand. All this stuff can work together. It can coincide, and that's great, and that's wonderful. So really, today I did a really basic overview of evolution, really basic, And, you know what? I don't even think I'm gonna, I don't even know if I should link this one article. But, you know, it makes me mad in a way that people don't believe in evolution. And not that I care what people believe in it, but it makes me mad because it's true. And it makes me mad when people are withholding information that is true just because it doesn't fit their narrative, right? Believe what you want to believe in, but evolution is true. It's why I'm here talking to you today. It's why you're listening to your phone, listening to your laptop, listening to YouTube, whatever it is. It's why we are who we are, and it's why we aren't chimps, okay? If you want to believe there's no evolution, you might as well go sit in the forest with all the chimps, okay? Because that's basically what you're saying you are. That's it. That's my 2 cents on the piece. I don't want to get any more infuriating, so I'm sure I'll do an episode on this as well, because you know what? We're dipping our toes into a little bit of controversy here. I think I only used 2 or 3 articles. Actually, I'll link the article that I used for this little political debate, because you know what? I have to. So anyways, that is where I'm going to leave this episode off of, because there is so much more about evolution. I literally just touched the literal tip of the iceberg on evolution. I literally just said what it is, how we know what it is, and Charles Darwin. That's really all I said, and I went a little bit into, like, a little bit of religion. So I really briefly touched on that, which I think was enough for today's episode. I think today was really chill. I talked a bit about politics at the beginning, a little bit about the James Webb Space Telescope. I thought, this was a really good chill episode, and I think that's exactly what we needed today. So, if I do another evolution episode, which I'm sure I will, I'll go into more specific topics. More topics really about the evolution aspect of it, like how we went from chimps to humans, all, you know, Homo sapiens, that whole not linear, but yeah, it's linear, time is linear, a whole kind of linear structure of how we became who we are today. And I'll also kind of go into, I'm sure I'll do a whole podcast episode just about the future of evolution, and there's this, again, using that Kurzgesagt video to kind of explain that as well. So that's what I'll get into for the rest of evolution. So I hope you guys really enjoyed just a really brief introduction on evolution today. I hope you learned something. Love learning something new every day, or at least every week through this podcast, through the Ever Changing World podcast. And yeah, so that was really brief, I will say. So this is very just tip of the iceberg episode on evolution. So definitely do more of your own research and listen to a future podcast episode once I get that up. So anyways, if you want to check out the 3 resources we have today from today's episode, go link it. And also, if you ever want to keep updated on new episodes, which I'm sure you do, because this is, you know, obviously a great podcast, please connect on Instagram at ever.changingworld. Again, at ever.changingworld. Twitter, everchangingwor. Again, everchangingwor. And then the website, which you might be listening to, but it's https, you know, hyphen, dash, we didn't really need to say that, but shows.acast.com/ever-changing-world. Again, shows.acast.com/ever-changing-world. Okay? Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast episode. Please tune in next week and keep updated through the socials. Again, I stand with the people of Ukraine. I stand with everybody who's involved with this conflict. I hope everyone stays safe. And my thoughts are with everyone. And to finish up the episode, I hope you enjoyed. Go listen to all the other past episodes of the future episodes, whatever you're listening to. Maybe you're listening 1,000 years in the future. Who knows? Anyways, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. I'll see you guys all next Tuesday.